This is a fan-generated show. If you would like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com and also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. All your support is greatly appreciated.
Good evening. Welcome to the Glazov Gang. Tonight, Trump's Sharia Test proposal. Backed by popular demand, Nonie Darwish, the author of The Devil We Don't Know. Nonie, what an honor to have you back on the Glazov Gang.
My pleasure, Jamie, always.
Nonie, in a recent speech, Trump proposed, in more or less words, a Sharia test for Muslims coming into the country. As an ex-Muslim and a freedom and liberty warrior, what do you make of this?
Well, Trump's latest two speeches, in my opinion, were Reagan-esque. It's the first time I've ever seen a Republican after Reagan who's speaking everything that we want openly, and he was not apologetic. We're not still unified as Republicans behind him. He was speaking about very important points that I've been hammering on since I started speaking after 9/11. Number one, when I came to America, when I immigrated, that was during the Cold War. I filled out my forms in 78, 79, and at that time there was a question that I had to fill out, and it said, do you belong to any communist organization? So the tradition is, whenever we are in a war or even a Cold War with a certain culture, we, in our immigration policy, we pick and choose people who are not affiliated to that culture. So I was wondering, why aren't we asking, now that we are in a war with radical Islam, in a war with Islamic terrorism, how come we're not asking this question in our immigration? Why aren't we asking a question like, if you believe in Sharia, if you live under Sharia, we live under a constitution of the United States, and this upon which people should immigrate to America.
Right, Nonie. Now, this is common sense, and Trump in his speech was saying, look, in the Cold War, we had ideological screening tests, just like you've just referred to this. Now, the left is brilliant, and I mean evilly brilliant in its propaganda and its political war fighting, because what the left, with the Islamists, this unholy alliance, what they've done is, you see, they're very much against racism. They're against racism. And when I'm being sarcastic here in the sense that we're all against racism, obviously, but they have used this term in such a clever way now that they have conflated Islam with Muslims. They've conflated this. So what they've done is, if you say something about Islam, you're being racist.
Absolutely.
And this is a very brilliant propaganda strategy by the Unholy Alliance, and we have to be fighting it.
Exactly. I mean, I'm not preaching Bible here, but the Bible says we're not in a war with flesh and blood. So when you speak against Islam, we're not against people, flesh and blood. We're against the ideology of Islam. And this is something that they criticize the books. We criticize the statements written in the books. We open books of Sharia and criticize it. We're not talking about it, of course not. But I think they are trying to make us appear on purpose as though we're racist. When we're not dealing with people, we're dealing with an ideology. It's just like communism or fascism. Since when is an ideology or a religion above criticism? Since when is that?
No, absolutely, Nonie. Now, I want to move, you've got a new book out, and I want to talk about it because it's directly connected this. To the best of my knowledge, the title is Wholly Different Islamic Values versus Biblical Values, right?
Exactly.
All right, this is fascinating stuff. Let's get to this. But before we do, in terms of this suggested screening test, this Sharia test, which you're saying, and I think this is just common sense. We have an enemy when these immigrants come in or newcomers come in. Do you believe in an ideology that, believes in Sharia, that believes in the oppression of minorities and women, etc., etc.? Here's my question. better to try this test than to have no test. But how does this test, if it could be implemented, how could it overcome the very skillful Takia of the people coming in?
It's not going to be easy, but we have to minimize at least we're open to an invasion by jihad, by radical Islam. First of all the countries that have ISIS fighters that exist on their lands today, we cannot allow people from these countries. Syria, Iraq, Libya, Yemen, even the Sinai. If we interview somebody from Egypt and they have a residence in the Sinai, we should be doubtful about it. There are certain things, common sense, in which we can limit the access of terrorists into America.
You know what my ideal situation would be? When these immigrants are coming in, to have Annie Cyrus and Nonie Darwish at the door, looking at these people, watching the questioning, you know what questions to ask, and you'd be able to pick them out in a minute, right?
Absolutely. I mean, people like us, we can tell radicals, actually, there are a few questions, but of course they won't answer them, right? But at least we should make it clear on the immigration papers that these are important questions because we will not allow you to practice it when you come to America. Number one, practicing jihad, practicing Sharia, are not practicing incitement to enforce Sharia. We have to make this clear in our official papers, in our official immigration papers. Just like when I applied for immigration to America, I was asked, do you belong to a communist group or a communist party? So the questions, even if I lied, let's say I was sympathetic to communists, the Soviet Union at that time, but I could lie, but at least I know that I am signing a form that says I cannot do that.
Right. And Nonie, before we move forward, I used the term Takia. Just very briefly, please tell our audience members that might not know what it means.
Yeah, well, Islam sacrificed everything, all the regular values that the West hold dear to our hearts, sacrificed all these values, including truth, for the purpose of jihad. And in Islamic Sharia, it clearly says that lying and slander and exaggeration and breaking one's oath are all allowed if it's for the benefit of Islam and jihad.
In other words, and again, we're not saying all Muslims. What we're saying is a Muslim that follows Islamic teachings knows that he is sanctioned to lie when he speaks to the unbeliever, correct?
It's an obligation to lie.
Before we move forward, Nonie Darwish, wholly different Islamic values versus biblical values. When can we expect this masterpiece to come out?
In February of this coming 2017.
We can't wait. Why don't you just give us one more little example of something you found?
Very important. We're always hearing about fear of terrorism. If Islam just stops terrorism, then everything is going to be okay. But there is much more than just terrorism that we have to fear from Islam. It's our whole system, our whole biblical values are exactly the opposite of Islamic values. There are even the concept of sin. In Islam, sin is viewed completely different from the biblical sin. In the Bible, we say we're all sinners. In Islam, they are all sinners. Muslims never consider themselves sinners. It's you, the non-Muslims, who are sinners. So there's concealment of sin is part of the obligation of a Muslim. To conceal your sin, not to confess your sin. Jesus came down to save us. In Islam, we have to save the reputation of Muhammad. And if somebody makes a joke on Muhammad, we have to kill him. Why? Because it's our obligation to save Muhammad's reputation. It's the exact opposite.
Thank you, Nonie. And, people say all religions are equal. And the more we study these things, and as your book will show, that is very much not the case. We've got to wrap up here, but let's go over some of these themes. We started with Trump and this Sharia test proposal. Look, Trump also said that it's time to temporarily suspend immigration from the most dangerous and volatile regions of the world. You would think that a country that wants to protect itself from terrorism would stop immigration from places where there's a lot of terrorism. Apparently, this is a very evil concept, according to the left. Well, what do you think about it? Common sense?
Yeah, of course. It's the first time that I notice similarities between liberals and Muslims in one sense. Muslims are ready to sacrifice their citizens for jihad. Liberals are ready to sacrifice their citizens for their goals. So if a nightclub full of gay people and they claim that they love gays, if they blow them up by a Muslim, then they don't want to talk about it.
Nonie, we have to go, but I want to pick your brain here. You're one of the wisest people I know, so please, very brief answers to the following very quick questions, okay? But very briefly. What does Nonie Darwish think about Hillary Clinton?
Hillary Clinton is a sociopath. She has no conscience. She doesn't have the energy or the health or the stamina to do what she's doing. And if we elect her, we're going to have a very bumpy ride for 8 years, in scandal after scandal. We're going to be completely in turmoil, constant turmoil with her. She's going to bring us down with her.
Nonie, your thoughts on the Republican hatred of Trump in terms of the never-Trumpers?
Unfortunately, Republicans are used, Jamie, they are used to being martyrs. They are used to the abuse of the liberals, the Democrats, and there comes somebody who doesn't want to be a victim anymore. There comes to us Trump with pride in our values, and some of us, some Republicans, are shocked by that, and they are more comfortable in the old polite little boys who are abused by the media. They are the martyrs of the media, and they want to keep us this way.
Yeah, terrible stuff. Before we go, probably the most important question in terms of your whole career and your life, in terms of the peak of success, is it appearing on the Glazov Gang?
Absolutely. Glazov, Jamie, you are the best. By the way, it's not a joke. You are.
These are the kind of conversations I like. I like these conversations. Go ahead.
You are one of the very early people who appreciated my articles and posted them right away. And really, you gave me confidence to write more. And so I appreciate that in you.
Okay,
Jamie.
Thank you, Nonie. Maybe we need to do a show just on this alone. Nonie, thank you so much for everything that you do and everything that you are. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you, Nonie. And thank you for watching the Glazov Gang. Please remember, we are here because of you. Support the Glazov Gang at jamieglazov.com. And you should be ashamed of yourself if you are not subscribed to the YouTube channel of the Glazov Gang. Good night.